Welcome back. Well, the events in today's story were inspired by the real experiences of the author's mother, whose name was Marion, and Marion's sisters and friends in Yuma, Arizona, way back in the early 1900s. And because we don't live in a desert in the Southwest, it might help if you know what this plant is, because it shows up in the story. It's a shrub called ocotillo. So you ready? Let's read. Roxaboxen, written by Alice McLaren, illustrated by Barbara Cooney. Alice Van Cleek Anderton was born in 1933 in West Point, New York, where her father was a colonel in the U.S. Army. Alice started college at Stanford, but dropped out after 2 years to marry her first husband, had 3 kids, and then went back to UC Berkeley to finish her BA and earned a PhD in anthropology. Alice died here in Seattle in 2019 at the age of 86. Barbara Cooney was an American writer and illustrator of 110 children's books published over 60 years. She received 2 Caldecott Medals for her work on Chanticleer and the Fox and Oxcart Man, and a National Book Award for Miss Rumphius. Her books have been translated into 10 different languages. Miriam called it Roxaboxen. She always knew the name of everything. There, across the road, it looked like any rocky hill. Nothing but sand and rocks, some old wooden boxes, cactus and greasewood and thorny ocotillo. But it was a special place. The street between Roxaboxen and the houses curved like a river, so Marion named it the River Road. After that, you had to ford a river to reach Roxaboxen. Of course, all of Marion's sisters came, Anna May and Frances and little Jean. Charles from next door, even though he was 12. And Eleanor, naturally, and Jamie with his brother Paul. Later on, there were others, but these were the first. Well, not really the first. Roxaboxen had always been there and must have belonged to others long before. When Marion dug up a tin box filled with round black pebbles, everyone knew what it was. It was a buried treasure. These pebbles were the money of Roxaboxen. You could still find others like them if you looked hard enough. So some days became treasure hunting days, with everybody trying to find that special kind. And then on other days, you might just find one without even looking. A town of Roxaboxen began to grow, traced in lines of stone. Main Street first, edged with the whitest ones, and then the houses. Charles made his of the biggest stones. After all, he was the oldest. At first, the houses were very plain, but soon all began to add more rooms. The old wooden boxes could be shelves or tables or anything you wanted. And you could find pieces of pottery for dishes. Round pieces were best. Later on, there was a town hall. Marion was mayor, of course. That was just the way she was. Nobody minded. After a while, they added other streets. Frances moved to one of them and built herself a new house outlined in desert glass, bits of amber, amethyst, and sea green, a house of jewels. Because everybody had plenty of money, there were plenty of shops. Jean helped Anna May in the bakery. Pies and cakes and bread baked warm in the sun. There were 2 ice cream parlors. Was Paul's ice cream the best or Eleanor's? Everybody kept trying them both. In Roxaboxen, you can eat all the ice cream you want. Everybody had a car. All you needed was something round for a steering wheel. Of course, if you broke the speed limit, you had to go to jail. The jail had cactus on the floor to make it uncomfortable, and Jamie was the policeman. Anna May, quiet little Anna May, was always speeding. You'd think she liked to go to jail. I wonder why. But aha, if you had a horse, you could go as fast as the wind. There were no speed limits for horses, and you didn't have to stay on the roads. All you needed for a horse was a stick and some kind of bridle, and you could gallop anywhere. Sometimes there were wars. Once there was a great war, boys against girls. Charles and Marion were the generals. The girls had Fort Irene, and they were all Girl Scouts. The boys made a fort at the other end of Roxaboxen, and they were all bandits. Oh, the raids were fierce, loud with whooping and the stamping of horses. The whirling swords of Ocotillo had sharp thorns, but when you reached your fort, you were safe. Roxaboxen had a cemetery in case anyone died, but the only grave in it was for a dead lizard. Each year when the cactus bloomed, they decorated the grave with flowers. Sometimes in the winter, when everybody was at school and the weather was bad, no one went to Roxaboxen at all, not for weeks and weeks. But it didn't matter. Roxaboxen was always waiting. Roxaboxen was always there. And spring came, and the Ocotillo blossomed, and everybody sucked the honey from its flowers, and everybody built new rooms, and everybody decided to have jeweled windows. That summer, there were 3 new houses on the east slope and 2 new shops on Main Street. And so it went. The seasons changed, and the years went by. Roxaboxen was always there. The years went by, and the seasons changed until, at last, the friends had all grown tall, and one by one, they moved away to other houses, to other towns. So, you might think that was the end of Roxaboxen, but oh no, because none of them ever forgot Roxaboxen. Not one of them ever forgot. Years later, Marion's children listened to stories of that place and fell asleep dreaming dreams of Roxaboxen. Gray-haired Charles picked up a black pebble on the beach and stood holding it, remembering Roxaboxen. More than 50 years later, Frances went back, and Roxaboxen was still there. She could see the white stones bordering Main Street, and there where she had built her house, the desert glass still glowed, amethyst, amber, and sea green. The end. Today, on a hill on the southeast corner of 2nd Avenue and 8th Street in Yuma, Arizona, you can find the real place, once known as Roxaboxen, which was turned into a children's park after the huge success of this book, which had been published in 1991. With the aid of her mother Marion's childhood manuscript, the memories of relatives, and letters and maps from the former inhabitants of Roxaboxen, Alice was able to recreate that magical world as if she had played there herself. Now, Barbara Cooney thought illustrating Roxaboxen would be one of the toughest assignments she ever had. She made 2 trips to Yuma and found a small tan hill dotted with stones and rocks, a scattering of desert plants, lots of broken glass, and at the time of her visit, an old car chassis. But accompanied by Alice's 80-year-old Aunt Frances, yes, the Frances in the book, the magic and spirit of Roxaboxen began to emerge. A magic found in the minds and hearts of the children who played there. This photo shows Alice's mom, Marion, Alice's sister Anne, and baby brother Herbert when Alice was about 3. The 2 girls on the left are neighbors. Alice is, of course, the one on the right, who obviously does not want to be there and has better things to do. Frances is not yet born. So, why is this book so special and beloved that people come from all over the country and bring rocks to leave in the Roxaboxen Children's Park in Yuma? I didn't realize this book was based on real events until I finished reading it for the first time last week, and I was stunned. I was so impressed at how it showed the glorious gifts we receive from God: creativity, imagination, being able to just play. And when we are being true to the kind of people God created us to be, how we can create a community of sharing and love, no matter our age. I hope you enjoyed the book as much as I did. And come back next week and let's have another story. Bye-bye.